We're going to be talking about the steps that occur when you have found your house and have an accepted offer. One of the biggest mistakes that I see that most home buyers make is that they don't take the time to prepare to learn about these steps before they actually start looking for a house. But today, we're going to discuss those steps. We're going to walk you through everything so that you can understand exactly the moments that you are at risk and when things are going smooth. All right, so if you get the contract signed, this means that you have looked at the properties and you have a formal acceptance with wet ink signatures from both yourself and the seller. You have an executed contract. And what this typically means now is that there's specific contingencies that are going to occur that have been forementioned in the actual contract in itself. Not completing these contingencies on a timely fashion can risk you losing both the house and possibly your deposit money. So let's try to get into some of these contingencies that are going to occur in the contract. And these are more or less the steps that are going to happen once that offer is accepted. The four things we're going to be talking about is the deposit, or in other words, earnest money. Number two, it's going to be the home inspection. Number three, we're going to be talking about the appraisal and the loan approval. And then number four, we're going to be talking about closing and what actually happens the day of closing. The deposit money is almost the very first promise that you're making to the seller. And you're basically telling the seller that if they accept your offer, one of the very first actions that you're going to take is that you're going to deliver this deposit money with either to a title company or a real estate brokerage. In a lot of cases in the state of Florida, where we practice real estate, this is most of the time you're going to see the buyer delivering the money to a title company. Now, there's a few details that I want to talk to you about when in regards to the deposit money so that you know what to expect. Very first thing is a lot of people are going to ask me, Jose, what is the actual expectation in terms of dollar amount for a deposit money? And it's good for you to know that the expectation with a resale property is typically 1% of the purchase price. So if you're looking for a $400,000 house, the agent that represents the seller, they're going to be expecting a $4,000 deposit money to be delivered to a title company. Yes, it can be less and it also can be more. Either or, this dollar amount is basically signaling to the seller your level of commitment to continue with the other contingencies of the contract in a timely fashion and to get to closing also on a timely manner. Typically, you're going to have about 3 business days to get this done. So, if you have your offer accepted on a Tuesday, that means that Friday by 5 p.m., that money needs to be at the title company. And you could typically go in person with a cashier's check or sometimes even a personal check if the title company allows it, or they may require you to actually wire the money so that it's done in a very electronic and safe way. The second contingency that we're talking about is the home inspection. In the state of Florida, it's actually optional. You don't have to do a home inspection, but you are more than likely going to want to do one. Now, the home inspector can be selected by the buyer, so you don't actually have to go by the realtor's recommendations. However, it may not be a bad idea as well because that real estate agent probably has enough experience and has worked with enough inspectors to know who does good work. But then again, if you find a friend or if you know someone that you prefer to use, just make sure you tell your real estate agent that you prefer to use that specific inspection company. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the details of this inspection company because most people are going to ask me what the cost is. And really, the cost can vary based on who's the company that's performing the inspection company, who's the inspection company performing the inspection, and also what type of inspections are you doing beyond the full home inspection report. You're going to have different options that you might want to look into that can be favorable for you, such as a termite inspection, mold inspection, or even a 4 point inspection. And there's going to be a lot more to choose from, and it's going to be completely optional as to what you want to do and how much you're going to pay for. In a standard contract, it's defaulted that a buyer typically has about 15 calendar days to perform the inspection and be able to communicate to the seller's agent if they're going to continue with the property or not. Now, that's actually the defaulted time, but in reality, 7 to 10 days is usually the case when it comes to being able to order the inspection, have it performed, have the report reviewed, and then at that point, talk to your real estate agent to communicate on your behalf to let the other party know if you are proceeding. The third contingency goes hand in hand with the loan approval, and that's the appraisal. Now, one of the very first things that I want to discuss is that the appraisal is not the home inspector. People get those two confused all the time. Let's keep in mind that the appraiser is actually going to look at the value of the home. If you are buying a property for $400,000, the bank is going to want to know if the property is worth that exactly or more. So they're going to ask you to pay for an appraisal that they're going to order on your behalf. And that appraiser is going to go out to the property to look at everything in the neighborhood to see what has sold in the past 6 months and does it justify what you've contracted this property for. They do look at the condition of the property on a very basic eye level. They're looking for things that might be like exposed wires, rotten wood, maybe some stains in the ceiling that could be an indication of past or present leaks. But don't mistake this for the home inspector, because the home inspector is a much more thorough. They're actually going to climb in the attic, go on top of the roof, and just check out all the details to the property when it comes to the condition. So that's the difference between both the home inspector and the appraiser. The appraiser also typically runs about a $600 to $800 cost. A lot of this kind of varies between the lender that you choose. Just make sure you ask in advance so that you know exactly how much you're going to be spending out of pocket for this expense. I'm going to stop here for a second because we just got finished talking about both the appraisal and the home inspection. And one of the things that I want you to know is this, is that in both of these timelines and both of these steps, there could be times where you're starting to renegotiate several things. You might negotiate the price of the home, maybe the repairs of the home. And this is where things can go sideways, right? You can either proceed and have the seller agree to your request, or you can actually have the seller reject your request and decide not to sell you the home at all. And they can actually do that. And then there's other circumstances where maybe there's a compromise and there could be things that work in your favor and maybe some things that don't work in your favor. And this is where using a real estate agent comes in handy, especially an experienced one, because they understand how to navigate these waters before these things actually even occur. And that works to your benefit so that you know how to approach a situation like this. So I'm going to ask you at this time that if you're really enjoying a lot of this information, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and make sure you pay attention to some of the other videos we're going to put out there. And if you do have questions, use the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. Let's go ahead and continue a little bit more. And let's talk about one of the last contingencies that do work hand in hand with the appraisal. And that's the actual loan approval. And the loan approval is basically the process of the lender verifying all your information with your employer, looking at all your documents, and they verify the income, the assets, the credit, and they've sent this document and all this information over to an underwriter for an evaluation. And now this underwriter has evaluated everything. They might request maybe a few more documents from you just to make sure that the story in the file is solid and clear before they issue the loan approval to you. And this is a super solid yes. We are going to give you this loan for sure at this point. And this is beyond 100% guarantee and a lot better than actually receiving the pre-approval letter. So at any time that you can get a loan approval letter up front from your mortgage company, make sure you use that route because it is going to give you more peace of mind. Now that you've got the great news of being approved, you are just about done, and now you're hitting the closing stage. And the closing stage is more or less a contingency because you do have a date that you have agreed upon of when you're going to close. And accomplishing that date on a timely fashion is absolutely imperative. But there are times where a seller will grant there are times where a seller might grant you an extension on that closing date should there be an unforeseen circumstance, but it's not always guaranteed. So you want to tread with caution here because it's not expected that they give you that extension. And typically, once you're done with that loan approval, you're about 7 to 10 days. And typically, when you have accomplished that loan approval, you are about 7 to 10 days away from the actual closing date. And this is the date where you actually go to the title company and they present to you all the documents that you're going to be signing. You're going to be reviewing numbers. You're going to be reviewing all the rules that the mortgage company has for you. And this is the day where you're acknowledging that you are taking out a mortgage loan, but more importantly, you're getting the keys to your property so that you can officially become a homeowner. All right, guys, that's about it when it comes to the contract to close process, some of the contingencies that are involved in a contract, and some of the things to expect when maybe there's an unforeseen circumstance. And thanks again for watching.